Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Top Rope Renegades. We are new into the content creation scene of the professional wrestling world. My name is Kurt, alongside my good buddy from up north, across the border in Canada, RK. How are we doing this evening?
We're doing good, KG. Having a good time. Excited for the new content we're going to start creating here. And, we just came off of watching NXT. Carmelo Hayes blindsiding Trick at the end there. That match at Stand and Deliver is going to be amazing. Cannot wait. Thea Hale looked amazing again tonight. Just love her energy. She's going to be a big star on the main roster one day. Mark my words. And yes, Dijak is still white.
Okay, this is it. We've talked about it for months, even more than that, a year probably. We love wrestling and we love talking about it. Why are we not putting content into the world? And I figured the best way to do it, the best way to start content, is by giving the people our top 10 personal favorite wrestlers of all time, starting from number 10 to 1, just so people know what we're working with, because there's a difference between you and I, most likely, on this list. We probably have some of the same names, but I'm younger than you. I didn't go through certain generations that you did. You're older. You watched the Attitude Era. You watched the Monday Night Wars, so it's going to be really interesting to see what you talk about.
Definitely. That's the Attitude Era is definitely my era. I'm going to be that old guy that says it's probably the best era of wrestling ever. A lot of people probably disagree on that. But, that's every era of wrestling. Only real era I didn't really watch was the Ruthless Aggression era, which I definitely know a little bit about. And, the whole rise of John Cena, of course. Right, but the Attitude Era is my era, and I love it. Everything, Stone Cold, The Rock, Goldust, all those guys, the Montreal Screwjob, all that stuff. It was the best era of wrestling.
Yeah, and that was my era too. So that's kind of funny we'll see how this works. So we got our top 10 wrestlers. I messaged you earlier today. I was like, give me your top 10 wrestlers, your personal favorite in order. We're going to go from 10 to 1. I'm going to kick things off with you. Who is your number 10 all-time favorite wrestler?
Well, my number 10, it's probably... Well, it's hands down my favorite woman wrestler in WWE. She's definitely dominated the scene since the NXT days, and it's the one and only Bayley. How can you not love Bayley? Starting off in the business, the four horsewomen, come on, like the revolution, the women's revolution, come on.
I didn't even think. I'm really excited to see these lists because I didn't think in my mind, we've watched so much wrestling recently, and you love Bayley, and I love Bayley too. I didn't think for the second, she'd be on your list. So having her at number 10, it makes sense. It makes sense for you, and we love Bayley. So I like number 10. So my number 10 pick might throw you for a loop here, and he is an NXT guy. He went to the WWE. He's now in AEW, and his name is Adam Cole Bay. I'm an Adam Cole guy. The Undisputed Era run in NXT was one of my favorite runs in wrestling. And then got called up. Things didn't go right. He's in AEW now, doing his thing with the Undisputed Kingdom. But I'm a huge Adam Cole fan, and I was like, man, I gotta get somebody in there from the NXT days, and Adam Cole is on my list.
That's an amazing choice. He did not make my list, but Adam Cole, like you said, the Undisputed Era, they ran NXT. They were NXT for so many years. Like how he's definitely he's definitely a top guy in all businesses, and AEW is lucky to have him. That feud alone with MJF alone was what was running AEW for over a year. So it's perfect. It's a good choice. I think WWE really missed out on that one, not keeping him around.
So as you see in the list, it's not just WWE guys. It's not just AEW guys. It's professional wrestling as a whole. So we moving forward here. Number 9. Who makes number 9 on your list?
Well, it's a certain baby boy of a certain woman. That'd be Mrs. Foley's baby boy, Mick Foley.
Mick Foley.
Hardcore legend. multiple personalities. He killed it with Cactus Jack. He killed it with Mankind. He killed it with Dude Love, and he killed it as his own Mick Foley. I mean, how can he not make a top 10 list? The Hell in the Cell match with Undertaker alone puts him in the top 10. Just that match alone, but there's so many more. Like he was perfect. He embodied that hardcore spirit that, you know, I that's probably my favorite aspect of wrestling is the hardcore stuff. So
You might be upset with me because I did not have Mick Foley on my list. But that just it makes sense. I didn't grow up watching the Attitude Era. Am I saying if I had a top 20 Mick Foley's on it? 100%. He probably makes my top 15. But
okay,
it just,
I'll give you that.
It wasn't.
It's like you said, different eras. I'm obviously very biased towards the Attitude Era, but Mick Foley, genius of the industry, a guy that shouldn't have made it, but made it because of his ability to tell a story and be endearing to the fans.
So moving forward on my list, number 9. You can call it a recency bias, maybe on this one, but I've heard the name for years. It's Kenny Omega. I think Kenny Omega is still hopefully, speedy recovery. Hopefully, he gets better. We need him back in AEW. AEW needs him back. But Kenny Omega is got a case for the best wrestler of this decade. Kenny is fantastic. Recently, we've watched a lot of New Japan, and just watching those matches that he puts on are incredible. So Kenny Omega had to make my list somewhere, and number 9 fits for kind of what I'm going with here.
I agree wholeheartedly. I ain't gonna lie. Like, I didn't know who Kenny Omega was. I didn't even really know who he was when he was in AEW. I saw him a few times there. I mean, I'm not going to say I watched a lot of AEW. I've only really picked up on it in the last year or so. But yeah, I didn't know who he was, and he blows my mind. He's amazing, absolutely amazing. The stuff he does in the ring is amazing.
So Kenny Omega at 9 for me. Well, moving forward here, number 8. We're getting through the list here. Number 8. I'll go first on this one. We'll split it up a little bit. I'll stick with the recency bias, if you want to call it, but I've always been a fan of this man. It's Cody Rhodes. You know how big of a Cody guy I am. Finish the damn story, please, Cody. And I get worried every single day as the days pass that the story may not get finished, but we'll see come WrestleMania here in a couple weeks. But Cody Rhodes on my list. He's incredible. The charisma's out the world. In-ring ability, fantastic. So Cody Rhodes, number 8 for me.
We're probably not going to be friends after this one, but Cody Rhodes is not on my list.
I'm not shocked. I'm not shocked that he's not on your list.
He's like same thing with Mick Foley. For you, he's top 15 for sure, but he just doesn't quite crack that top 10 list for me.
All right. Well, who cracks your list at number 8?
Yeah. Well, I mean, this probably won't come as a surprise to you because this is by far my favorite wrestler in AEW right now, Jon Moxley.
Oh,
and
yes.
This goes back to my whole love for the Attitude Era. He is the current day embodiment of that Attitude Era. He's a hardcore legend. He's nonstop wrestling. He's a worker to no ends. He goes ever New Japan, AEW. He was in WWE for good 7-8 years, like Dean Ambrose. Like, he's done it all. And everywhere he goes, he's always had that loose cannon, the unhinged, the lunatic moniker, and it fits him. He's just you can beat that man up to near death, and he'll still come after you. He's the embodiment of the Attitude Era today, and that's why I love him.
Jon Moxley, when he left WWE and went to AEW, it changed him, and I think he's way better off in AEW. It fits him. He can do the things he wants to do. He's not on my list, but honestly, like we just said, a top 15, it's possible Moxley's in there because he's incredible to watch. So, moving forward from that, we're on to number 7. I'll go again here. And you may think this is low for this person, but for me, I was just going through it and I was thinking about who I really loved and growing up and watching. Number 7 for me is Undertaker. I know some people have him Mount Rushmore, and that's incredible. I think Undertaker's fantastic. But Undertaker, just growing up watching him, you couldn't hate the Undertaker. The streak was amazing. The matches with Shawn Michaels were amazing. So that's why Undertaker takes the number 7 spot on my list.
That's the great choice, Undertaker. Obviously, he's on my list as well. He's a little higher up. We'll get there eventually. But yeah, he's the phenom. He's the dead man. He's the streak, everything about him. I mean, he's on. You ask 100 people, he's on 99 people's top 10 list. He is that guy.
Yeah, he's incredible. Number 7 for you.
Number 7, you had him already, Kenny Omega.
Nice.
Yes, you already said so much about him. I mean, we could talk for hours on Kenny Omega, just on the handful of matches we've watched in the last week of Kenny Omega.
Yeah.
Let alone the last few months, let alone his whole career work. The guy is wrestling. He works to be the best. He, hands down, probably in the last decade, like you said, is the best. The best bout machine. You don't get that nickname by having bad matches. I can't think of a bad match I've seen him in. Even when he's doing gimmick matches, they're good matches. You know, what's more to say about that? His in ring work is top notch. His charisma is off the charts. He's able to recreate his persona and still have the fans love. It's phenomenal. Everything he does is gold. If he had been around as long as guys back in the 90s and 2000, he'd probably easily be top 3, top 2 for me.
There you go. Kenny Omega making both of our lists. So we're moving forward here. Number 6. Who is number 6 for you?
Oh, sorry. Chris Jericho, Y2K. Didn't know much about him in his WCW days. Obviously, that's where he got his really started getting recognized. But I remember watching the lead up to why Chris Jericho's Y2J entrance into the WWE, the vignettes that they did. Everybody kind of had an idea who was coming, but nobody was 100% sure. When it hit, it blew my mind. The guy, so much charisma and athleticism in the ring. And I mean, to top it all off, I'm a metal fan, and he has probably one of my favorite metal bands out there, so that helps a lot. But the guy's still wrestling today, and he's still top of the business. He's still top guy at AEW. He's top guy in WWE. Goes over to New Japan. He's a top guy there. He's a top guy ever. He's a guy that you want on your roster. He's going to give you quality matches every time.
Can't go wrong with Chris Jericho. He's a legend, Hall of Famer for sure. Number 6 for me, and this is really going to kind of start to show the difference of the eras in which we watch. Number 6 for me is Randy Orton. Randy has one of the greatest finishers of all time. Diamond Dallas Page will argue that it's just the Diamond Cutter, but it's the RKO. There has been so many times you're watching Randy Orton and the RKO out of nowhere. My favorite one that stands out, Seth Rollins at WrestleMania 31, I think. The stomp into the RKO was incredible. So Randy Orton comes at number 6 for me. I was debating if I should put Taker ahead of him, but Randy, I mean, can't go wrong with Randy Orton. I can't tell you the many times in the summers at swimming pools where you're with your buddies and I'm running around RKOing people into the pool. It's fantastic. So Randy Orton, number 6 for me. So before we get into the top 5, there's a couple of things I wanted to ask you. Was there any buddy that just missed out on your top 10 that comes to mind?
Just missed out? Yes, absolutely. Bret Hart being one of them. Obviously, being a Canadian, Canadian wrestlers are going to hold a closer spot to my heart. Bret Hart, man, what can you say about the guy? Like, he was the new generation of wrestling. He had that look. He was oozing charisma. Like, how could you not love the guy? The matches he was in were top notch. He was probably And you know how much I hate throwing this term around, but technical wrestling, Bret Hart was up at the top of it.
Yeah,
Uh,
Brett's fantastic.
and and then he flipped around and he had that match with Stone Cold at not Survivor Series, sorry, WrestleMania. Survivor Series popped my head because obviously Montreal screw job. That's always going to be forefront of Bret Hart's career. But the WrestleMania before that Survivor Series, that match was Stone Cold. Stone Cold would not. I don't think Stone Cold would be the Stone Cold that he became if it wasn't for that match with Bret Hart. Bret Hart brought the storytelling of that match was unreal. That was one of the best matches in the history of wrestling.
So Brett did not make my list, but I recognize greatness for sure. Someone that didn't make my list, which I was going through it, and I was like, man, I didn't put him on there, and he was like my generation, is John Cena.
That's
I know.
on my list.
He would probably be number 11. But Cena it speaks for himself. It's John Cena. He carried the company. So I love John Cena, but he just didn't make my top 10. So top 5 time. I'm going to send it to you. Who is number 5?
Well, you've already mentioned him, but I got to mention him too. The Phenom, The Undertaker. I mean, the WrestleMania streak, and just to be in such a character all the time and live that life when kayfabe meant so much to the industry.
Mm-hmm.
It was. You weren't sure with him if that was really him or not. Like he wasn't. He's not Mark Calloway. He's the Undertaker. He's opened up more in the recent years about his own personal life, obviously with that amazing documentary. Mm-hmm. But he'll always be the Undertaker. He's got a podcast. Yes, amazing. Like 10 years ago, you say Undertaker's going to be talking about his personal life and going out on tour and talking about dude lived wrestling. He was wrestling. He believed in it. He had a character that was timeless, and he was able to adapt with the times, change that character, but not lose that character. And he also was part of ushering in something that had never been before, was the cinematic matches, that Boneyard match with AJ Styles. I mean, at a time when they had to adapt, and how could you have a more fitting end to a career than that match? I mean, you could talk about the Undertaker for hours. The matches he's in, like the feuds with Kane, it's never ended. The dude is wrestling. He's a top 5. If it wasn't for the guys ahead of him, he'd be top 1, obviously. But the top 5 on my list, it's you could flip flop the order any which way you want, and it's still going to be the same result. The Undertaker is wrestling.
So yeah, Taker came in at 7 on my list. You couldn't leave him out of a top 10. He carried, he was a part of the people that carried alongside Stone Cold, who carried WWE through the Monday Night Wars. Those two, and alongside The Rock and many others, Triple H and whatnot, carried WWE through the Monday Night Wars. And that's just another name randomly. Triple H didn't make my top 10. Probably should have, looking back at it, but I'll move forward.
Triple H, I'm with you on that. He's not in my top 10, but Triple H, I mean, he's the man. He went from, being taken out of the King of the Ring because of a certain curtain call to being the top guy in the company. So Triple H is deserving of a shout out. There's just so much talent you put in the top 10. Is there really a bad top 10 list?
No.
It's just some guys not everyone can make that list.
No. Number 5 for me, you already, you actually haven't mentioned him, but I'm mentioning, you just mentioned Undertaker. One of his greatest rivals at WrestleMania, Shawn Michaels. He's number 5 on my list. Now, the difference here between you and I is you got Attitude Era Shawn Michaels. I've seen Attitude Era Shawn Michaels, but I got Shawn Michaels' quote unquote second chance when he came back, and I got to watch that.
Some say it's better. A better run,
right? And watching that and then seeing the back-to-back WrestleManias against Undertaker, those are 2 of the greatest matches I've ever watched at WrestleMania. Those are probably on a top 10 list of greatest matches at WrestleMania. They put on a show. Shawn Michaels had to be in my top 10, and he comes in at number 5. Top 5 for me, Shawn Michaels. So we're inside now. Top 5. Number 4 for you. Who is that?
Number 4, the Brahma Bull, Flex Cavana. Amazing talent. No, The Rock, man. Dwayne The Rock Johnson. What can you not say about the man? He's a goat, man. He's nothing. Everything that man did, brilliant. And you know what? From his face work to his heel work and back to his face work, he could flip flop. He could do both. Hollywood Rock, the People's Champion. He did it all. He had some of the best matches in the history of the business. Some hands down the best matches. Some might argue he doesn't have the best ring work, but you know what? Sometimes less is more. The guy, I could talk about The Rock for hours. The Rock was the Attitude Era. He ushered in. He crossed those lines. He blurred the lines of what you could do in wrestling and what you couldn't. He rose to superstardom. He is probably the most recognizable member of wrestling. You mentioned wrestling to people. You mentioned John Moxley. Somebody they don't know who John Moxley is. You say The Rock, they go, "Oh yeah, The Rock." Everybody knows The Rock. He transcended the business. He is one of the all-time greats.
The Rock he's coming up on my list. Don't worry. But number 4 for me, like I said with Kenny, maybe this is recency bias. I don't know. Me personally, I think he's the best wrestler in the world. It's Will Ospreay. There's probably quite a few people that don't know who Will Ospreay is. Just look him up. Look up Will Ospreay on social medias, YouTube, the TikToks, all of it. Find matches. Will Ospreay is the best wrestler in the world, in my opinion. He doesn't put on a bad match, and he is so exciting to watch. Electrifying, some would say. Shout out to The Rock. But every match I watch of Will Ospreay, I'm just waiting for the next boom, the next thing to make me go, holy shit. Will Ospreay is so good in my mind, and that's why he's number 4. I couldn't put him in the top 3 because the 3 are close to my heart. But Will Ospreay definitely was in my top 10, top 5. He's 4 for me.
Chip Cheerio.
Yeah.
Dude, yeah, he didn't make my list. I'm going to say that out right now. He has not been at the forefront long enough for me to put him in that list. You ask me in 5 years from now, 10 years from now, is he on top of the list? He probably makes number 1. Right. Yes, electrifying is one way to put his matches. The dude is... He's got so much energy. He just flies around the ring. He does everything. He's got no regard for his body. He does hardcore matches. He does everything. And some might argue that he doesn't have that charisma. Well, that most recent promo on AEW would just quickly dispel that thought. The dude is oozing charisma. He is a natural leader. He's another one of those guys who can flip flop face to heel. He's a good guy. He's a bad guy. Whatever he's got, he does it all. He is a generational talent. 10 years from now, he's on my list. He's probably number 1. He's just so good. So good.
Good guy, bad guy, it doesn't matter. The crowd is going to lose their mind when Will Ospreay is in the ring because he's going to do something incredible.
Yeah, so the guy's a walking 5-star match machine. I don't think he puts on matches under 5 stars.
Just like our conversations we're going to keep having would be 5-star as well if we were in the Tokyo Dome, but we're not. And, maybe eventually we'll get to a 5-star in the Tokyo Dome. That's dreaming big right there. So we're through 4. Number 3 on your list. We're in the top 3. Technically, we're in the Mount Rushmore. So Ospreay is number 4 for me. Rock was number 4 for you. Who is the next 3? So we'll start with 3. Who is that?
One of The Rock's greatest rivals, arguably the only other guy during the time that could match the level of The Rock's popularity, yep. Stone Cold Steve Austin.
Before you keep going, he is also number 3 on my list.
He's phenomenal. Like you couldn't tell. Was he a good guy? Was he a bad guy? No, he was stone cold. He wasn't a good guy. He wasn't a bad guy. He was stone cold. He did whatever he wanted in that ring, whatever he wanted, said whatever he wanted. He crossed lines more than anybody. He didn't give a shit what anybody thought about him. And that was his character. And Austin 316, that came out of it just out of nowhere. King of the Rain, you got your John 316. Well, Austin 316 said, I just whooped your ass. He ignited an era. He ignited an era. He embodied that attitude era to a T. I remember one episode of Sunday Night Heat, and that's a shout out to a very old show that's no longer there, but he literally just went to Sunday Night Heat. It's a modern show. It's showcasing younger talent. He just goes, what does he do? He just stuns everybody. Everybody in the ring. Everybody sees the camera guy, the catering guy, every superstar, the boss. He just stuns them all. He doesn't care. And that was Stone Cold. He just did not give a fuck. He just did it all. He gave his heart. He had some of the best matches ever. I mean, iconic moments just pop in my head. The Royal Rumble. He's just eliminating guys left and right. He's sitting up on the top turnbuckle, looking at his wrist, waiting for the next contestant because he took out everybody. Stone Cold was the Attitude Era.
There's nothing I can't echo that you didn't just say. Like I said, I didn't grow up with the Attitude Era. I was at the very tail end, and I mean, even after everything I've watched, everything I've seen, Stone Cold is truly, he's one of the greatest of all time. He's on everybody's Mount Rushmore, I would think. Granted, his career was cut short, but Stone Cold, anytime he shows up, when you hear the glass shatter, the place is going to lose their absolute shit. So Stone Cold, number 3 on your list, number 3 on my list, and now we're into the final 2. So, number 2 for you, who is that?
So this man holds a very special touch to myself. The Attitude Era ended. It started going to the Ruthless Aggression Era, and I lost interest. Couldn't tell you what it was. I just couldn't connect to it anymore. Mm-hmm. And then it was 2011, 2010, somewhere in that era. I'm like, well, I'll pop over. I'll take a watch, see what's going on. I haven't watched it for a few years, see what's happening. And I saw this man cutting a promo, and I was just like, what the fuck? I'm like, this... He's speaking gospel right now. I was blown away, and that man is CM Punk. He reignited my love for the business. If it wasn't for that, I can't say I'd be watching wrestling today. He was misunderstood by so many, and yet he captured the hearts of millions. I mean, he was no nonsense. CM Punk, I mean, he left the industry for 8 years, came back, and was instantly the top guy in AEW, and he was gone for 8 years. Like, you can't just disappear for 8 years, come back and be the top guy instantly without, having left some kind of mark in the industry. We all remember the kiss from Money in the Bank. I mean, everything he does, he is so charismatic that it doesn't matter. He is so good, and I'm so glad he's back in the WWE, and I can't wait to see him get back into match form because I got to see that guy wrestle again.
Looking at my list, Punk isn't on my list, and kind of looking at it, I'm not gonna change it up. If I was gonna take anybody off, I guess it would be Adam Cole, and I would put Punk in. I love CM Punk. Shout out to Chicago. I'm a Chicago, big Chicago guy. I'm not from there, but I love the city. I love everything about Chicago. And he embodies Chicago to a T. Got the dude's hoodie hanging up right here on my doorway. I love CM Punk. He should have probably made my list, so I'm kind of kicking myself on that one. But everything you said, CM Punk is incredible. You hand that man a microphone, and he will have the entire audience eating out of his hand, is how much CM Punk means to the business and the people that love him. So, number 2, this might catch you off guard who my number 2 is. It's Chris Jericho.
Oh, okay.
Chris Jericho is, in my mind, my Mount Rushmore because he is the definition of he knows when it's time to switch things up. Whether it be a certain gimmick to a certain point, he's like, you know what, it's dead. I'm gonna switch it up. I'm gonna change it up. I'm gonna do this different. I'm gonna do this different. He's been doing it for so long, and he's still going at a top level, as you mentioned earlier in AEW. But he went from Y2J, and there was an interview he did where he talked about,
Before that, he was in WCW.
right.
He's been around forever.
But you go back to the Y2J days. He was in an interview and he said, it kind of wore out. And then I told everybody, I told the announcers, I told the commentators, I told everybody, I said, hey, we're dropping the Y2J thing. Stop. Don't call me that anymore. And he switched it up. And then he went from WWE to New Japan to, as you said, Fozzy. Shout out to Fozzy. His own song that he made with Fozzy is his theme song now. There's a YouTube video. I don't know if you've seen it. If you haven't, or watching it after we get off this, is when he is in a feud with MJF, and MJF made a rule that when Chris Jericho comes out, his music can't play. He can't come out with the Judas theme song, and the entire crowd sings that song word for word. And I get goosebumps every time I watch that video. He's incredible. I love Chris Jericho, and it's a part of my childhood. Growing up, me and my cousin would always wrestle, and the Walls of Jericho. I'd always put my cousin in the Walls of Jericho when we would have our fake wrestling matches on the sofa or the bed. That was my go-to, the Walls of Jericho. So Chris holds a special place in my heart. He's number 2 on my list, and we are now to the final spot. Number 1. Do you want to go, or you want me to go?
My number 1 holds a special. You go first.
Okay. Well, number 1 holds a special place in my heart too. But it is the Brahma Bull. It is The Rock. The Rock. I know I was a little late to Attitude Era Rock. Sure. But everything about The Rock drew me in. He was charismatic. His matches, even if they weren't great matches, didn't matter. In my mind, they were the greatest thing of all time. I was growing up, walking around the house, or raising my eyebrow up like the Brahma Bull. The Rock was incredible to me. Just a thing that pops in my head that I will watch back nowadays is The Rock and Hulk Hogan, WrestleMania 18, that face-off. And it wasn't even the main event. And people will talk about to this day, that should have been the main event. There was no story build, and AEW fans will love to point that out. There was no story for Rock Hogan. All it was icon versus icon. That's all you got. As soon as they got in the ring, it was it. It was one of the greatest WrestleMania moments of all time, if not the greatest. Rock Hogan. So The Rock, number 1 on my list. Even now, what he's doing now in the WWE, he's back to heel Rock. And as you said earlier, he can switch it. Face, heel, whatever you want to call it. He kills it. He knocks it out of the park. Number 1 for me, Dwayne The Rock Johnson. Who holds number 1 for you?
Who holds number 1 for me? Well, this is, I mean, it's no surprise to you because I've told you before, but this is why I love wrestling. This is why I started watching wrestling. This is why I fell in love with wrestling. It's not other than the showstopper, the Heartbreak Kid, Shawn Michaels. What more can be said about the man other than Mr. WrestleMania? The amount of WrestleMania matches that he had that were absolute bangers. I mean, he didn't. I mean, we're not going to talk about that tag match in 2018, which wasn't a WrestleMania match, but that's probably the only bad match I can think of for Shawn Michaels. But the Undertaker feud, the Chris Jericho feud through the whole decade when he came back, like he feuded with Jericho for like 5-6 years, like they were just going back and forth. I mean, Shawn Michaels. I mean, I would be a kid doing his pose, his entrance pose, the flexing, like, Sweet Chin Music. Everybody does a super kick now. You got the Young Bucks super kick party. You got the Usos super kick party. You got Adam Cole super kick party. Everybody's doing super kicks. They mean nothing now. Shawn Michaels super kick, Sweet Chin Music, that meant something. When he was winding up that boot, getting ready to clock you right in the chin, and you knew that was the end, that was a super kick. That's when it mattered. And he just oozes charisma. Some of the best face work of any wrestler ever, some of the best heel work of it. Like going back into the territorial days when he's super kicked Marty Jannetty in the barbershop. Like just out of nowhere. Nobody saw that coming. Shawn Michaels was a babyface. All of a sudden he's the biggest asshole in the company. And just to retire due to injury and then come back for your first match back. You haven't been in the ring for years. Your first back match is a street fight with Triple H, and that match just killed it. And it reignited his love for the business, and then he went on another run, which is arguably better than his first run in the WWE. Like, the man has it all. What more can be said about Shawn Michaels? I mean, and now he is doing some amazing work in NXT. Some the way he's training the next up and coming stars and the storylines that are going down, you can tell they have Shawn Michaels written all over them. Those are Shawn Michaels stories, and I'm so happy that he's still doing it, because a WWE without Shawn Michaels is not a WWE to me.
Can't argue with that. Cannot argue with that. I'm going to run through my top 10 and just real quick, obviously no explanation, and then you can do the same. As I said, we had Adam Cole, Kenny Omega, Cody Rhodes, Undertaker, Randy Orton, Shawn Michaels, Will Ospreay, Stone Cold, Chris Jericho, and The Rock for me.
And for me, myself, I have Bayley at number 10. Love Bayley. Mick Foley at number 9. Number 8, I got Jon Moxley. 7, Kenny Omega. 6, Chris Jericho. 5, I got The Phenom, The Undertaker. Number 4, I got the Brahma Bull, The Rock. Number 3, Stone Cold Steve Austin. Number 2, Chicago's Finest, CM Punk. And at number 1, Mr. WrestleMania, Shawn Michaels.
So there it is. That is our top 10 personal favorite wrestlers of all time here for the Top Rope Renegades WrestleCast podcast. We'll iron out the details and figure it out in the end. But this is what we've been doing on a nightly basis for the most part. We watch wrestling, we talk wrestling, we search out all sorts of matches from New Japan to obviously WWE, AEW. One of our big ones we watch, NXT. I'm big in the NXT right now. Rev Pro, as you said. We even branched out and watched a little, what was that? PWG match?
Yep.
I had to go searching the interwebs to find to watch, but we eventually got there. And I'm really looking forward to WrestleMania week coming up. We're you gotta, obviously, the usual WWE shows. You'll have an AEW show. You'll have a bunch of random indie wrestling things going on that I'm gonna try and make a list and see what we can and can't end up getting to watch. But really looking forward to that. And I really enjoyed this list. I think it's something we can continue doing. Maybe not 10. 10 was for this category. It's personal favorites, and the list can go on and on. We could start from number 100 if we wanted to. But maybe shrink it down to the top 5. Your top 5 on Raw, SmackDown, NXT, AEW, top 5 New Japan things. Lists are a big thing in the wrestling content community, and why not enjoy it ourselves, because we love talking about it. So from this, if you were listening to this and watching it on TikTok, YouTube, wherever it is posted, in the comments, just leave a comment. Who's your top 10? Who's your top 5? I don't know the character amount on the things, but leave a list. I want to see a lot of people's opinions. I love hearing everybody's opinion on wrestling. And one thing I will say about how I portray wrestling, and I think you do as well, I love watching all of it. I'm not a homer to any of it. Am I more WWE based? Obviously. Has AEW been growing on me? Yes, it has. And I think you agree it's Watching every aspect of professional wrestling do well is such a good thing.
100% wrestling. I can't stand this divide between the
Mm-hmm.
wrestling companies. I told you this before. I'm a personal belief that I wish they could lend out talent to all wrestling companies and have
Right.
dream matches.
And the line is drawn
Where
between the fans. It's
and
not
it
the
is the
companies
fans. Well, obviously the
to a
companies a little
point.
bit, but the fans, I just I do have a bit of a problem with one side or the other. I don't watch WWE because AEW is real wrestling, or I don't watch
Yeah.
AEW because they can't tell a story. Like
Mhm.
it's all great wrestling. New Japan, Rev Pro, uh, it's all wrestling. It's all what we love to watch, and I think as a true wrestling fan, that should be the focus. It's like, look, we got access 10 years ago. We didn't have access to New Japan. We didn't have access to watching all these European companies out there. Like, there's so much talent out there that we don't know about. Like,
Mhm.
Kenny Omega, the Young Bucks. Like before AEW, how would you have known about them if you weren't a
Mhm.
diehard wrestling fan? So I think we're always going to I am always going to be a little biased towards WWE because that's
Yep.
what I grew up on. But I love wrestling. I'll watch
Mhm.
AEW. I will watch them all. I want to see every great match out there. Um, and yeah, that's about it. And to add on to the WrestleMania weekend coming up, yeah, there's a lot of shows WrestleMania
Mhm.
weekend. It's ridiculous. Like, I mean, let's just a quick rundown. We got Stardom's American Dream. We got GCW's Josh Barnett's Bloodsport, and
Which, and just real quick is we talk about the divide. Well, Josh Barnett's Bloodsport. We have WWE superstar Shayna Baszler, and I feel terrible for spacing her name, but versus an AEW superstar.
yeah,
Or no, I'm sorry, it's a TNA superstar, but also Maria Sharif is an AEW superstar. She's on the card, so it's GCW's got all these other companies that are there too. So we're seeing a little bit of a trend of maybe there's possibilities. I don't think it'll ever fully happen, but mixing it up here and there, and I think it's pretty cool.
yes, absolutely. And to continue on, we got Ring of Honor, Super Card of Honor. We got another GCW show, Joey Janela's Spring Break.
Always a
Uh, we
banger.
obviously we obviously have SmackDown leading
Mhm.
up to the show. We got the 2024 Hall of Fame ceremony.
Mhm.
We have New Japan Genesis 2024 that weekend. We have NXT Stand and Deliver. We have WrestleMania, of course, that's the big one. But I mean, I love seeing all these shows. That's just a week of wrestling. Like, I mean, you can't even possibly watch all that. You got to find it after because they're all on the same time. It's a wrestling dream. It's
Yep.
it's 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 the perfect weekend. I love that it's a whole week of just wrestling. It's great.
Yeah, and it will be taking place in the great city of Philadelphia. All these shows. I don't. I don't know what company it is, but I just recently read there's a company that is putting on a show in the original ECW building down in Philadelphia. That's a show that's coming. I'm not actually sure what show's company is doing that, but that'll be something to look into, see who shows up for that one. But yeah, this is what we've been doing on a nightly basis. Probably a little too late for me most nights, but I love it. And this is professional wrestling, and this is what we love to talk about. Hopefully, we'll get into the rhythm of hopping in here, recording it, and watching along and stuff of that, and doing the clips. Hey, content is king. You see it everywhere, and we love talking about it. So why not jump on the bandwagon? Call it whatever you want. We're just having fun with it, and figured we'd put it out there into the open in hopes that other people will see it and have an opinion, and we can go back and forth and have a good time with professional wrestling. So this has been Top Rope Renegades. Like I said, Top Rope Renegades WrestleCast podcast. Maybe we stick with Top Rope Renegades and don't even add the cast. Uh, we'll iron it out. This is just the first go around. And the favorite tagline that you came up with, I'll let you say it. That what is it if we were in the Tokyo Dome? What would we be?
This would be a 5-star podcast if we were in the Tokyo Dome.
You're damn right.